Your question is Yahweh a way to spell the name or Yahweh better? Or is it the same? Uh, it's pretty much the same. However, adding both the U and the W kind of adds an extra U since there's only one Vav. The letter Vav, uh, the name of the Father, basically, this would be the pronunciation of the first three letters of the name of the Father, Yahu. The first three letters, the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav. The Vav is basically, yeah, I cannot do that. The U. The letter U, the way we pronounce it basically, is the Vav in Hebrew. So there's only one Vav, and that's why I either add the W or the U. At the end is the same pronunciation. You can write it Yahueh or Yahweh. Um, the fact that with the W or with the U sounds the same, that is the important thing, the way that we pronounce it. Because, as we know, the name is originally written in Hebrew. And since we are speaking English, we need the letters that we use in English in order that we can read it and pronounce it correctly. So what is important is the pronunciation. And that is why I am saying it's basically the same if you write it with the U or the W, because the pronunciation should be the same. However, when you add both the U and the W, I think it adds an extra letter, um, or makes it longer, the sound, which not necessarily is in the actual name. Like I said, there's only one Vav. That is the Vav that is turned into a U or a W, depending on the person, basically, because I repeat, it's pretty much the same pronunciation. So I will begin from now. I will start from where I left it, kinda. Actually, I remember that I was explaining something regarding Yahushúa when he said, I come in the name of my Father, and you do not receive me. When one comes in his name, him you will receive. And I explained a lot regarding that verse. And then I was going to go to an argument that in Christianity is used a lot when it comes to this that I am saying. Basically, when I explain this to a pastor, one of the most common arguments that I will get from them is the one that I wanted to explain. However, as I was explaining it, there were some questions that led me to a completely different route, and I think it was good last week, but I will try and start from that moment in which I went the other route. So hopefully you guys remember the verse I was talking about, because it is a very important verse and very revealing. The fact that Messiah says that he came in the name of the Father and people did not receive him. Why? As I was explaining just a few moments ago, the first three letters of the four-letter name of the Father, I repeat, the name of the Father has four letters. Three of them, the first three, are part of the name of the Son. And the first three letters have basically the same meaning as the four letters, however, in the past tense. Yahweh means he who caused to exist, or he who exists. Since everything that does exist, or we think that exists, came through him and because of his will. So he is the one who exists. That's why when Moshe asked Yahweh, what is your name? Because he knew that in Egypt they were idolaters, so they would worship every single false Elohim, every single false deity of the world. So he needed a name to distinguish the Almighty from all those false Elohim. However, Moshe did not need to distinguish anything, because there is only one true Elohim, and then all those are false, like I just said. So that's why Yahweh answered him and said, I am what I am. Some others translate it as I am who I am. Yahweh was saying, I am he who exists. I am the only one. What are you talking about? What is my name if there is no other but me? And then he told him, when you go to them, tell them that Yahweh, Elohei of your fathers, the mighty one of your fathers, sent you. So there he went from Eye, which is I am, to Yahweh, he is. Because when he said I am, he was talking in the first person, referring to himself, of course, when talking to Moshe. However, when Moshe needed to know what he, as Moshe, as the preacher, would have to tell the Israelites and the Egyptians, basically, Yahweh tells him, okay, you will say Yahweh, meaning he is, in the third person, because Moshe would be talking about the Father. So when the Father was talking about himself, he said, I am. But when he told Moshe, he told him, tell them that he who is sent you. And that is basically the main difference, or the reason why there's a difference between the I am and the he is. Eye, Yahweh. So Yahweh is his name because we are worshiping him in the third person, he who is, he who causes to exist. So, like I said, Yahu is he who caused to exist, he who has always existed. Yahu, Shua, that is, Yahweh saves, enriches, and other synonyms. So, Yahweh saves. In the name of the Son, we find the name of the Father. That is why Messiah said, I come in the name of the Father, and you do not receive me. If another one comes in his own name, him you will receive. Like I explained, he meant it in every way. Like everything that Yahushúa said, and this is very important that we understand, everything that Yahushúa said, everything that is in scriptures, everything that is written there, is there for a reason. We need to understand that. There is no other way around it. We need to figure out, of course, that those Bibles that we get nowadays translated to English, they are translations, so there will be a difference when it comes to certain words that actually were not in the original writing, however were added to connect words, and they are normally shown as italic lettering, and things like that. I mean, we should understand that if we read it in English, it's going to be a translation. But what I am saying is that what the scripture is telling us, everything that is telling us in the way that it's telling us, because we need to understand something deeper. And then once we get that, we're going to get another thing that is deeper than that. And then the Almighty is going to give us a deeper interpretation. And that's how scriptures work. And that's why when you read scriptures, you're going to, maybe the first time you feel like you don't understand much. Then the second time you read it and you feel a lot of mercy or a lot of judgment, depending on what part of scripture you're reading. And then you read it again, and then you see that other than the mercy and the judgment, is trying to give like deeper teaching about a lot of other things regarding life. And then when you go deeper and read it again, like I said, you're going to find more and more things, because the scriptures are alive, because they were written by the only Elohim who lives. So that's why these scriptures, when you read them, every time you read them, you're going to find something new each and every time. Guarantee, of course, if you have spiritual eyes to see, meaning that if you have faith. Because first you need faith, and then you're going to start understanding. That's what scripture tells us, and that is what I have experienced. Most people believe that they need to first understand in order to then believe and have faith. And what I mean is understand those deep deeper things, because of course we can understand that Messiah came down, died for our sins, and resurrected. We can understand that because we know the story. But then, can you understand how he was resurrected, since everybody in the world has died and never resurrected to stay alive forever? And many other things that we do not understand at first, but we do believe in the power of the Almighty, even though we may not understand it. As we believe in the power, the Almighty, through His power, makes us understand along the way. And of course, His power is so great that we're going to need eternity to get to understand that power. But we should start right now. That is basically the reason why. So as we start walking through the way, which is Messiah, Yahushua, the example that He gave us, the Almighty is going to start teaching us every single thing as it is also written. So, Yahushua came in the name of the Father because He is the Father coming as the Son. He is the Almighty made flesh. So He said, the name of the Father is in my name, yet you do not receive me. When, He didn't say if, He said when another one comes in His own name. As we know, Satan, he doesn't like to worship anybody. He doesn't like to give praise or honor to anybody because he wants all of it for himself. That's basically his error, what made him fall, as we see in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. So Lucifer, Satan, Hillel, he fell because he wanted all the praise of humans for himself. Instead of giving it to the Father, which was basically his job, he wanted to keep it for himself. So he tried to take the place of the Father in the hearts of men. So Lucifer is not looking to give anybody honor. However, Yahweh, the Almighty Creator, is so great and at the same time humble that He sent His Son and He gave all praise to the Son. But the Son, as He is like the Father, and therefore He is the most humble man ever, He says, no, give it to the Father. He is greater than me. So Yahushua came giving testimony of the Father. When we come to the Father gives us testimony of the man, the Son of man, Yahushua. And as we know, Yahushua, when He came, He said, if I were to give testimony of myself, that testimony would be empty. However, I'm giving testimony of the Father. And my works are what gives testimony. The fact that He was doing all the things that He was doing was to show who His Father is, who gave Him that authority. So Yahushua comes and He said that He would leave and then another one would come, and we see in the book of Revelation that Yahushua sent His malach, His angel, to give testimony to the congregations, to the churches, quote unquote, as the world calls them. So the witness, like Moshe of Revelation 11, is the malach of Yahushua, who is coming to now give witness of Yahushua. So just like Yahushua came to give witness of the Father, now the Father is coming to give witness of the Son. I hope that is clear. That is why Yahushua, He said before He left that He would not leave the chosen few as orphans. A brother does not leave his other brother or sister orphan if he lives. It's only a father. So Yahushua was saying with this verse and all the other verses that He would come back as a father, as the father of the congregation, while the first time He came as the Son. That's why Yahweh told the Son, Yahushua, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies for your footstool. So Yahweh said that He would do it while Messiah the Son is up there. So the Son gives testimony of the Father, and then the Father gives testimony of the Son. However, Satan is not giving testimony of nobody. He only wants all the worship for himself. That's why Yahushua said, I come in my Father's name, like saying, I come to give honor to my Father. when another one comes in his own name, meaning when another one comes trying to get honor for himself, saying that he's this and he's that, that one the world will receive. Yahushua did not say if, did not say maybe. He said, you did not receive me, so automatically the world will receive the false Messiah. You do not receive me with the name of the Father, so automatically the world will receive a Messiah with his own name, a false Messiah, a lie, one that only wants to give honor to himself. And the name, for instance, most commonly used to refer to a Messiah in the world is Jesus. As we all know, that is the name most commonly used to refer to a Messiah in the world. I say it like that because people need to understand that the name Yahushua is completely different than the name Jesus. As you can see, the word Yahu is not found in Jesus. However, the word Zeus is found in Jesus, Jesus, and many other ways that people pronounce it in different languages. But for instance, most people say, no, but Jesus is a translation of Yahushua. That is not a translation. A translation is the definition of a word in another language. Jesus doesn't mean anything, in the sense that in English doesn't mean anything. It's only a name, as people would say. But they say is the translation. A translation is the definition of a word in another language. They say it's a transcription or a transliteration. It is not, because a transcription is when you write, like I just explained, with your alphabet, a word that is normally written with another alphabet. However, you write it with your letters in order that you can pronounce it as the people who write it in their alphabet pronounce it. So obviously Jesus is not pronounced as Yahushua at all. So they are two different names. And I don't want to make anybody who worships with those names, Jesus and Jehovah and all of those names, feel like I am attacking them, because that is not the case. I am trying to inform, share knowledge in order for everybody to reach the Father in a better way, on a higher level, and at the same time beware of all those fake names and titles, which eventually will lead people to the worst path ever. And that is my point. Because Yahushua said, I come in the name of the Father and you do not receive me. When another one comes in his own name, you will receive him. So Jesus, like I just said, has Zeus in it. Zeus is what they would put in names in Greek so that they would give honor to Zeus, the father of the gods, or the chief of the gods in Greek mythology. And Zeus, according to scriptures, is not mythology. According to scriptures, is true, and actually Zeus is Satan, Lucifer. So how interesting that Yahushua said, I come in the name of the Father, Yahushua, and you do not receive me. When another one comes in his name, Zeus, him you will receive. So I hope that is clear. So when I explain this to a Christian, normally they will say, and I repeat, I mean pastor, Christian pastor. Normally they would say, when he said that he comes in the name of the Father, he didn't mean that he has the name of the Father in his own name. That only means that he came because he was sent by the Father. And that's what he meant by saying in the name of the Father. So therefore, the other one that comes in his own name means that he comes to do his own will. Yeah, that is also true. Of course, that is one of the ways that can be interpreted. That is one of the ways that those words are used always. But that's what I was saying a few moments ago, when I was saying that everything that is said in scriptures is there for a reason, and the way it's being said is for a reason, so that we can understand the a shallow level, the most literal level, and then we can go for a hint of a deeper level, and then we can go for a parable, or see it as a story that is telling us something that is invisible, spiritual. And then we can go and get the mystery or the secret of that which is being said. So yeah, of course, one level of interpretation of the words I come in the name of the Father mean that he sent Messiah. Another interpretation that's still completely correct, because what we have read in scriptures, and not only there but everything that is in history regarding the name of the Son, which I will explain in just a bit, when we see that the name of the Son literally has the name of the Father, that verse comes to life, and we can see a way deeper interpretation and actually more literal, because he was actually talking about his name, the one that he was given by the Father himself through the Malach Gabriel. So that is very important, because they say no, that just means that he sent, that the Almighty sent him. So I say to them, I take them to another verse of scriptures. As Yahushúa said, scriptures cannot be broken. And when we're talking about the scriptures that cannot be broken, we're talking about the Hebrew scriptures, the original written scriptures. Because through translations, they have made basically certain mistakes that seem, or that make people believe that the mistake is in the scripture, or that the Almighty, the author of the scriptures, made a mistake. But the actual mistake is in the hands of the scribes or the translators. So I hope that is clear. So scriptures cannot be broken. One verse cannot go against another. If one thinks that two verses are contradicting themselves, we need to understand that the error is in our interpretation, is in our understanding of them. So we need to figure it out so that they both agree. And that is one key that I basically learned to use throughout my study of scriptures. That is why we cannot bring our predisposed or prejudgment with us when we come to read scriptures, because we're going to try and put our doctrine in those pages, and that's how you end up taking things out of context and other things. So we need to see and read and see what the Almighty wants to tell us, and then we figure out how we deal with it. Meaning, we need to accept it even if it's harsh at first. And once we accept it, we understand, for instance, that as you repent, those prophecies of destruction are not meant for you. However, when you were in sin, you would read that and you would feel like, oh, I'm in trouble. I better not read. So those are the things that we need to understand. So if they say that Yahushua said, I come in the name of the Father, and that means that the Father sent him, then I take him to another verse that says, in Mark 13, for instance, is one of them that I think everybody has heard. I have heard it a lot. Mark 13, verse 5 says, and Yahushua, answering them, began to say, take heed that no one deceives you. We need to understand this was said 2,000 years ago. Many people read it and think that it was said a couple years ago. What I mean by that is that they think that everything that they have learned from kids and I mean from the time that they were kids and from their parents, they think that everything was correct and perfect. However, now that they have grown and are starting to use judgment, so forth, they see that the world is gotten worse than it was when they were kids going to Sunday school, and they say, wow, that is the apostasy. They see a person that preaches something that is completely different than what they preach or have heard, and they say, oh, that is a false prophet. However, they are not understanding that Yahushua said this 2,000 years ago. We need to understand that when we were born, the church, and now I call it like that on purpose, had already gone to the bad side, meaning the apostasy. The whole Christian world is in apostasy because they are following wrong doctrines. Yeah, there are some that are better than others. Yeah, there are some that look more pure than others. But when we put their doctrines to the test, they fall, they break. That's it. And that's why there are so many denominations. The congregation is one, not thousands of Christian denominations. And that is important that we understand. So he's saying, take heed that no one deceives you. We need to understand we were born deceived. We were taught deception as truth. And then the plan of Satan by doing that is so that when the truth appears, the truth may appear as a thief. The truth may appear as something that is trying to steal the esteem of the Father, the honor. I hope that is being clear. By teaching us from our birth lies, deception, we then would grow to see the truth as deception, because people are seeing deception as the truth. And that's why Isaiah says that woe to those who call good evil and evil good, because in this world that's what they do. So take heed that no one deceives you. Is very important to understand that we were born deceived. And we had to come to the truth. And that is something that it is virtually impossible for most people. Obviously, in Yahweh, there's nothing impossible. But people try to do this by their own works or through their own strength. And that will be impossible. So many people will get stuck in the lie, unfortunately. Take heed that no one deceives you. For, and listen to this, I will read it as the King James has it. I will read it as the King James. And as most translations have it. And then I will explain a problem that we have with the translation and other things. I'm trying not to take a lot of time, but I know I'm doing it. So it says, Mark 13:5, and Yahushua answering them began saying, take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many. So people tell me that the other verse, when Yahushua said, I come in the name of the Father and you do not receive me, they say, that means that he sent him. That's all it means. But Christians, when they come and read this verse, they switch their interpretation completely to the opposite. Because they just told me that's not what it means. It has nothing to do with the name of the Father. It only means that he was sent by him. Okay, so then we come here and we read this and they say, no, this means that people will appear using his name. People will appear saying that they are the Messiah. And in part that is true. But how come they just change from I come in the name, meaning he was just sent, to many will come in my name, to they got the name. They're using the name. So that is, like I just said, and I hope I'm being understood, being basically picking and choosing how they interpret scriptures depending on their doctrine, out of context. And that is a big problem. So they're taking verses out of context. This one, they want to preach it like they want just because they don't have the name. And they say, oh, he was sent. And this one, they say, oh, no, they will use his name, Jesus. They will appear saying that they are Jesus, as many have appeared in these last days. But if the first interpretation that we have been discussing was right, if it were right, here we would have to interpret it the same way. And then it becomes a problem. Because it said, for many will come in my name. Then I would ask a Christian, does that mean that those many false prophets and false messiahs would appear on earth because he sent them? Meaning that Messiah wanted to trick everybody on purpose? That makes no sense, because he's the truth. Why would he want to lie to people or send lies? It makes no sense. So he's not saying, for many will come because I sent them. This would be interpreted like we interpreted the other one. Many would appear using his name. Yeah, that's how it would be interpreted as we read it. However, people are not appearing using his real name. People, there are two kinds. One that most people think of when they read this verse is false messiahs. So most of the false messiahs either appear with their own name, or they actually say they are Jesus back on earth. If we were to go to the concordance, and remember that it is my opinion for many reasons that even the New Testament was written in Hebrew. However, because of everything that has happened throughout history, the oldest that we have of the New Testament is the Greek. So most of the translations are done from the Greek, others from the Aramaic, but most are done from the Greek. In this case, it is the Greek that they use for the King James Version. And if you were to go to a concordance, basically a dictionary of all the words that are found in the scriptures, you would find that the word which is right here in "for many will come in my name," and this is pretty bad, a pretty bad problem for translators. The word that they are translating as "in," when they say many will come in my name, the word in Greek is epi. Epi. And when you read the concordance, amazingly, and that is something that I would like to ask a Greek from 2000 years ago, the word is translated throughout scriptures as in or as against. In and against are both meanings of the word epi. And I will actually say the other ones that they connect with this word. This word epi is translated as upon, on, at, by, before, of position, on, at, by, over, against, across, against, at. So it could be translated, many will come against my name. Many will come across my name. As in the opposite, with an opposite name. Or crossing, destroying. Many will come at my name. This is very important also. This is a very good translation. Many will come at my name. Mark 13 said many will come in my name. That's how they translated it. If we were to say it like this, many will come at my name, then we understand why just a few verses later in that same chapter, Mark 13, we see that Messiah tells us, you will be hated by all because of my name. You will be hated by all because of my name. But he who endures till the end, he will be saved. So, that makes sense why he said, previous verses, a few verses before, he said, many will come at my name. So that's why we would be hated, because many would come against his name. And this is very important and one of those huge issues, because I do think this one is huge, that I have found with the translations that most people read nowadays. There are not, I dare to say, there are not many issues like this one in the translations. Not many. There are a few, but not many. The main problem with the translations are the names. So it is interesting that one of the biggest problems with the translations has to do with hiding the fact that people would be against his name. So Messiah said, many will come against my name, like preachers and translators. Many will come against my name, saying that I am Messiah. So Yahushua was actually saying, many will come preaching against my name, using different names, saying that my name doesn't matter, destroying my name in scriptures, changing it for another thing, crossing it. Many will come against my name, saying, I am he. I am the Messiah. So Yahushua was actually saying, I repeat, like I said, there are two kinds of people that could be the ones that Yahweh is referring to in this verse through Yahushua. One is a false Messiah who appears with a different name, like the ones that claim to be Jesus. This one that was it from Latin America, Jose Luis Jesus de Miranda, I think it was his name. So he had his names plus Jesus. Then there are other ones like and I am all of a sudden forgetting names of a bunch of false prophets and false messiahs that have appeared on earth. For instance, some claim or are kind of against me because of my name, Koresh, because my name was used by David Koresh in the United States, who was killed by the government. And even though he was preaching something that I don't agree with, if you investigate that event, is pretty shady what the government did, killing a bunch of children. When they were trying to get out, they would shoot them. And they burned the place down with children and women inside, and they blame it all on that guy. So some people go against me because I have a name that he used. But that is not my problem. I'm not using it because of him. But for instance, David Koresh, they put him in the list of false messiahs. Then we have I'm forgetting one, the ones that have made everybody drink something and they made a mass suicide. There's one that Jim Jones, for instance, Jim Jones, whose name there is a rapper who started using it, which makes no sense. The reason why Jim Jones was a false messiah. With the scriptures, he led a bunch of people through the wrong path and ended up killing them. His name was Jim Jones, was not Jesus. So my point is, they come against the name of the true Messiah. They come against Yahushua. But even though they come against that name, people believe in them because they come with their own name. So, I come in the name of the Father and you do not receive me. When one comes in his own name, him you will receive. That is one fulfillment of that verse, confirmed by this other verse in Mark 13. So the false messiahs, they appear with the name Jesus or any other name, and people believe them, and they cause havoc. However, those false messiahs have been prepared by the system, by the Illuminati. There's actually a program in MK Ultra that I don't know if you guys know about MK Ultra, but it would be great if you study a little bit about it. MK Ultra is a project that the United States government, or maybe I should say the world government within the United States, started to do with certain subjects in which they will use, at first they used LSD, but then they realized it wouldn't work for it. And they started using a bunch of methods, trauma, electroshock, and other things to cause people to go through certain things in their brains in which they would create walls basically to protect themselves from those traumas, and then they would add a personality, basically breaking the person into different personalities, what they call personality disorder. However, that is a spiritual thing, and that's why they were able to cause it within the person, so that those walls would be inhabited by a demon, which they call a personality. And then they would control that personality, or that demon would control that person during certain time in which the person does certain things. That's what they have done with many celebrities that sing and act and stuff like that. That's why many actors, when they start acting, they actually switch personality completely to that which they are portraying on the screen. Obviously, there are some who are just acting, but there are some who are just possessed. Like Denzel Washington is one who does that. But there are a bunch of other actors who do it. And for instance, during the whole shoot, Jim Carrey does it also. During the whole shoot, let's say they shoot for a year, that person is another person. If you want to talk to Jim Carrey, you have to come after a year and a half, because it also takes like time for him to come down from that thing they go through. In the program MK Ultra, they have programmed people to become sex slaves. For instance, there is a book called Transformation of America, written by a woman who was a sex slave of the Clintons, and that may sound crazy, but if the more you research, the more you will understand how truth it is. And that book is just a little piece of the puzzle. So there are sex slaves. Those are with the kitty program. Basically, they dress as cats or use leopard print, stuff like that. Then they have another program, which just a second. Oh, the Monarch program, which just like a worm turns into a butterfly. That is what they try to do with some people when they turn them into celebrities, for instance. And then there is another program in which they basically program the kid from almost their birth somehow. And I mean somehow as in not directly. In some cases they have done it directly, of course. But let's say the government, and I mean the world government within the United States, knows a man who is not a very good father, and he has a kid who he doesn't really take care of. So they say, okay, maybe we can use this kid as a subject. So let's ask this guy, this father, let's give him a job, let's pay him a little bit better, and let's use his kid. And there are many parents like that who have given up their children. Those children end up being programmed. And that third program that I was going to mention was one in which they wanted to create a bunch of false messiahs. They wanted to make kids, eventually grow up and start believing that they are the Messiah. And this is true. I hope you research it if you don't believe me. So Jim Jones, stuff like that, most of them most likely are subjects of that program. Some of them, well, there is one, I don't remember his name. He actually then became a transvestite and everything. After being Messiah, he turned into a transvestite. So imagine how twisted their heads are. He went to Jerusalem, and he went through a syndrome that a lot of people a lot of false messiahs seem to go through when they go to Jerusalem. So we see that it is a program that they do from this world, but what they are trying to do is, if we are using the word program, and as we know, computers and all of that, is basically they're trying to install a new software in them. Being the body, the hardware, they hide the software that it was built in with, and they put another software, so another spirit that will control the body. And when they go to Jerusalem, being Jerusalem, the set apart land, and so spiritual, that they start feeling certain things, and they actually believe that thing that they feel is a confirmation that they are the Messiah. So then they come back and start preaching. Actually, the Simpsons made a episode about that, in which Homer goes to Jerusalem and he thinks that he's the Messiah. And you know, the Simpsons use a lot of Illuminati stuff and put it in their show. So one are false messiahs. False messiahs would appear with their own names, like Jim Jones, or with the name Jesus, which is the name of the perversion which most people use in order to refer to the Messiah. And that which I just said is connected to the other interpretation or the other kind of person that Yahushua was referring to when he said this. Many will come at my name, many will come against my name. Most Christian pastors will go against the name and say, it doesn't matter, you call him whatever. They are against it. If you say that it doesn't matter, that's because you're against saying that it matters. Yahushua said it matters, but there will be people who will say it doesn't matter. Basically what he's saying. So Christians say the name doesn't matter. What matters is that you believe in him. Yeah, we should believe in him, but we should know what is the name of him in whom we believe. If we believe in somebody, we need to know that somebody. Because if we do not know that somebody, and by the way, we are expecting him, then we should be able to know something about him so that we be able to recognize it, because then somebody may appear and act as you may think that he should act and may fool you. So that's why we should have knowledge. Not only believe, but also confess. Not only believe in him as a man who came 2,000 years ago, but also confess him as the man who will save the congregation now. So, many will come against my name, like Christian pastors. They don't use the name of the Son. They use a different name. They're against the real name. Many will come against my name, saying that I am he. Saying that I am the Messiah. This is important. Christians say, yeah, he's the Messiah. However, we don't call him that. Yeah, he's the Messiah. However, it doesn't matter how you call him. They are against the name, but they say that he's the Messiah. They get the scripture and they say, yeah, I believe in him. However, I call him something else. So that is the clearest and most common interpretation of this verse in Mark. Mark 13:6. For many will come against my name, saying, I am he. The way some read it and interpret it, take it as the person who is appearing is saying that he is Messiah. Like I said, that is one interpretation of the first person, which is a false Messiah, like those programmed by the system. They appear with their own name or with the name of the lie, and they say they are Jesus. They say they are the Messiah. So yeah, that is one fulfillment. But the other fulfillment is those who are against the name, don't use it, claim it doesn't matter, but then they say, yeah, but he is the Messiah. So if he is the Messiah and you agree, why don't you call him by his name? And they say, no, I'm against thinking that it matters. So for many will come in against my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many. Will deceive many. It doesn't say all. The same as when the scripture tells us, for many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. Not all. So the world as a whole, in which all people live, all people, from those people, Yahweh called many. And from those many, he chose few. This is important to understand. He is not saying all are called and few are chosen. He said many are called, few are chosen. Now we are saying that from all people, the false Messiah will deceive, or the false preachers will deceive many, not all. Because as we know, the chosen few will not be fooled. On the other hand, there are some people who do not believe the false doctrines, do not believe the false Messiah, and that's why they are against Christianity, not understanding that they are judging the Almighty and the scriptures because of certain people called Christians or Catholics or whatever other doctrine. So that is also a problem, of course. But there are certain people who see those issues within the church and they reject the Father, thinking that the Father is a representation or is represented by that church. So that's why he will deceive many, not all. I hope that's clear. But the importance here is many, not all, is in the same way, from all, many are called. How are those who are called? Through basically Christianity. Christianity is like a veil. It's like a test, a trial. It's like the desert I have explained before. The world is Egypt, slave to sin. When you come out of that, you enter a desert and you go around and around being tested. Like the people were tested, our people were tested in the desert for 40 years. So when we are in Christianity, we are being tested to see if we are true, if we actually want to know Him, if we actually love Him, if we actually fulfill His commandments, or if we are just talking and not doing. So the desert is basically Christianity. We go around and around and around and around, but when we get to Messiah, Yahushúa, whose name was given to the successor of Moshe in order to enter the land, and that should be a clear sign of the importance of the name. Being the desert Christianity is like a veil. People are being tested. If you don't pass the test, you will die there in the desert. But if you are going and going and going, and you have the faith like the two witnesses had faith, Yahushúa and Caleb, who were sent to the promised land to see the land, and they saw giants and everything, but they came back and said, we can take him. Those people who had the faith of those two witnesses were able to enter the land. So that's why Yahweh will send two witnesses in the end times in order to preach the right doctrine, and those who have the right faith will get out of the desert, will get out of the wrong doctrine, and enter the true doctrine, the promised land. But there are many people who are afraid of the giants. There are many people who are afraid of pretty much everything. And sadly, it is because we have been taught to be afraid by the system, by the church, in many ways. So for many will come against my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many. So like I said, many, not all, because not all believe in a Christian doctrine. Not all believe in Jesus, for instance, but many do. So many believe in Jesus. Many of us believed in that name previously. So I guess all of us that are here right now listening, we believed in Jesus, and then we realized there was something greater, and we went for it. And now we're here. And now we're trying to help others to come forward, but they think that we actually are trying to get them out of that. They think we're trying to lead them astray, of course. So, but obviously that is not the case. So, just like Yahushua, the successor of Moshe, known as Joshua, told the people, we are going to go through a path that you've never been through. That is important, because the two witnesses will come with a doctrine that they have never heard. That should not be a reason for people to reject it. They should listen, judge, wait to see which one has more evidence, more truth to it, and everything makes sense, all of that, and then choose, because that's why Yahweh gave us free will and told us to test all things. So the two witnesses will appear, and just like Joshua, Yahushua told the people, we're going to go through a way in which you've never been through, and we're going to be in the promised land in 3 days, because Yahushua appeared, and in 3 days he resurrected, allowing us to enter the promised land, the forgiveness of sins and eternal life. So the two witnesses will appear and tell the people a doctrine that they have never heard, and they should go through it. But many won't, because they have been deceived. So many will be deceived, but many are called, because the call makes people go through the test. The call from the promised land made people go through the desert. So the same way, just like many are deceived, many are called, and from those who are called, few are chosen. I hope that's clear. But when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, which is happening right now at the moment, and has been happening for the past perhaps 20 years. Yeah. Well, one could say in 2001 started and hasn't stopped. So 17 years non-stop rumors of wars. And I mean mainly when they went against the Arabs for destroying the towers, even though they didn't themselves. So, but when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be troubled. We should not be troubled. For such things must happen, but the end is not yet. That's why the end was not in the year 2000 as many people expected. That's why it wasn't in the year 2012 as many others expected. And it hasn't been in all that time, even though a lot of people have appeared and said that the war would end because of Nibiru, because of this, because of that, the rapture, and a bunch of other things. You're right, Alejandro. If a name isn't important, then why Yahweh changed Abraham to Abraham? That's right. But to understand that, Alejandro, which I know you do, to understand that, people need to read scriptures. For instance, when I received the name many years ago, thanks to the Father, changed my life. When I received the name through research, I was reading a book and then went to another book. But basically, it was one book, the one that I just recommended, Melissa, The Final Reformation. I read that and it was amazing. I felt afraid because I was like, have I been doing everything wrong this whole time? On the other hand, I was saying, should I change what I have been doing this whole time? And that's why it is a double-edged sword, the word of Yahweh. So I received the name and I was like, okay, I'm going to take it slow. I will pray about it because I had not heard one soul mention the name Yahushúa ever at that moment in time. So it was, I guess, newer or yeah, more amazing for me than it may be for some that have heard it over the years and now are coming to hear it or believe in it. So I prayed to the Almighty and basically told him, okay, I'm gonna pray in those names and you show me if that is true. And he sure showed me real fast, real quick, for real, how powerful his name is, how he was listening to me. And of course, he was listening to me previously, but it's like after I got the name, it's like it was clearer. I was just going through. I didn't have to go through any filters, to put it somehow. So I started using the names and everything changed. But even though, I mean, it's not like I started using the names and everything changed in one day. So I had days to study. So throughout the change that I did in my prayers and teachings, because at that time I would preach in Christian churches, but then I changed the name, so they started, they basically stopped inviting me. But I used to teach in several Christian churches about the end times, eschatology. So when the Almighty taught me the name, I started using it in the congregations that I would teach. And all of a sudden, they did not want to invite me anymore. So it's part of it. Then I was alone. And then the Almighty formed the congregation, the way of Yahweh. Or El Camino de Yahweh in Spanish. We have 5 years. And now we just started in English virtually. So hopefully we get to grow also in this way. So when I got the name, I said, okay, I'm going to put it to the test. And at the same time, I'm going to study. So what I did is I went through scriptures. I wanted to see every single verse in scriptures that talks about the word name. Then from all those, I got rid of those that had to do with things like, and the name of the son of this one was this, and the name of the son of that one was that. And then I had basically stories like this. Abraham became Abraham. Sarai became Sarah. Jacob was given also the name Israel. And everything was to go up a level. Every time that they received the name was to become a better person. It was a gift. It was a reward, a pact, and many other things. Yahweh mentions that the last will receive a new name in Isaiah 45. We see Yosef in Psalms we see that his name was changed to Yahusef. So Yahweh gave him a letter so that the name of the father would be in the name of Yosef, turning him into Yahusef, because Yosef represents the second coming, because the second coming comes through the tribe of Yahusef. And I repeat, many other people. Shimon, who became Kepha, or Peter. Yahushua himself changed his name. So, we see all throughout scriptures that names are important, but we need to read scriptures. Not only those stories I read, but I got more than 450 verses in scriptures that show the great importance of the name of the Father and the Son. So for the importance of the name of the Father and the Son, there are 450 plus verses in scriptures. I went through all of them, and I ended up starting a book, which hopefully I get the time to finish it before the world ends. But a book based on those 450 verses, actually I had to take some out, but there are 450 plus showing the importance of the name of the Father and the Son. And other than that, we see one story after the other of people whose name was changed by the Father, showing how the Father puts importance on the name. So yeah, Alejandro, it is very clear when we read scriptures, but if we do not read scriptures, it's going to seem like it doesn't matter. And that's why people, when they have a kid, they just name him whatever they feel sounds good. Or they name him something that a famous person is called, a celebrity, a player of certain sport. So nowadays they lost the understanding of the importance of a name. How the name of a kid will shape that kid, his personality. Other than the day and year in which he's born and other details that obviously will shape him, his name will be one of the key things that will shape a child. So parents need to be careful what they name their children. If a person researches the meaning of their own name, they will see a bunch of connections with the way they are, or how or why they are the way they are. There are certain names that do not have a meaning or an important meaning, and that would be due to the fact that parents do not pay attention to the names that they give their kids. So, and obviously there are certain in which the meaning is so important even though the parents did not know it, and those are the cases in which one could say it was the Almighty working through our parents, giving us a name. So, let's see. It says Alejandro, because Yahweh calleth those things which be not as though they were. It's important. Yahweh gave the name of the Messiah thousands of years before he manifested on earth. For instance, Abraham was given the name Abraham, the father of multitudes, because he would become the father of the many and the few, the justified and the saved through faith, because he is the father of faith. However, he was given the name before he had a son. So Yahweh called him father even though he had no child, because Abraham also meant exalted father. We already saw that Messiah said that he came in the name of the Father, people did not receive him, and he prophesied. He didn't just say, he prophesied that another one would appear in the end with a name that would be his own, not to give praises to the Father or anybody else but to himself, and he would be the one that the world would receive, which is interesting because in today's society, people basically worship celebrities. That's why they call them stars. Stars are represent the angels. Celebrities, they call them, they call them many things. And that's why also in Los Angeles there is a walk of the stars, and all the stars of the celebrities are on the sidewalk, not on the wall but on the sidewalk, showing that they are fallen stars. So the fallen stars, the fallen angels of Lucifer, have been the ones that have given power to Hollywood and also to the celebrities and used them like puppets and all of that. So people worship popularity. They want to be popular, they want to be famous. Even though the scripture tells us that being humble is better, and those who are humble are not looking for fame, for instance, the world has taught us that the opposite is best. That people should look to be famous and, for instance, publish everything that has to do with their lives as if anybody or everybody wanted to know about it. Like now we have Facebook and Instagram and all of that, when the people put pictures about every single thing, even their food they eat and every single thing. They want to make everything public. They want to be famous. They want to be seen. They want reality shows, which are not based on reality. They are not real at all. But people see it and they think that is reality, and that becomes their reality. And as we know, reality shows are really bad. So that is becoming the reality of a lot of people in society. So people worship someone that is proud. Society worships someone that is famous, someone that talks about himself as being everything, the best and better than everybody else, and all of that. Society loves that, and that's why that is the attitude, the personality that we see in most heroes on the movie screen and all of that. Yahushúa is humble. That's why he came giving testimony of the Father, not talking about himself. When he would make a miracle, he would tell the people, don't tell nobody. When somebody would recognize him as Messiah, he would tell, don't tell nobody. But he said when another one appears who is completely the opposite, meaning he will appear trying to be seen by everybody and will say, I am, I am, I am. And he will ask the praises for himself and all of that. He is the one that the world will accept, because that's the one that the world wants. That's the one that society has been expecting. And I hope that's clear. So when society starts saying, yo, Messiah just came, let's go, you should know that you should go the other way, the opposite way. And that's what Messiah tells us also in Mark 13. I should have read the whole chapter. Mark 13 and Luke 17, Matthew 24. So important. Tells us that we're going to be hated by all because of his name. Tells us that preachers would be against his name but would preach that he is the Messiah, and they would lead astray many. So the many will be against the name but will believe that he's the Messiah. The few will be hated by all, the many and the rest. And then the rest, and in this case the rest I mean those who are not the many nor the few, would be those who take the mark for sure. From the many, since they don't follow the few, when the few are taken for the harvest, the many will realize that they were in a wrong doctrine, and many of those will be killed and then justified during the resurrection, while the other part of those many would not be able to give their lives for the testimony, and they will get the mark, and that's how they will be lost forever. So basically, from the many, some will go into justification, some will go into condemnation. The few, all will go to salvation, and the other ones who are not part of the many nor part of the few, most of them will get the mark. But there are a very few who actually don't know anything that is happening. They live in caves and they love people like they love themselves. They will be justified because of their heart. But I didn't mention those in the beginning because there are very, very, very few. So I hope that's clear, because I think it's very important to understand how the name, which is so simple yet so important, will play a key part in the end times and in what people believe and follow. Luke 9:48 says, "Whoever receives this little child in my name receives me." In my name. Once again, whoever receives somebody who is teaching of Yahushua the Messiah will receive Messiah himself in his heart. So if a person comes preaching to you the word of Yahweh, which is the name of Messiah Yahushua, and you receive that person, meaning you receive that teaching, then the word will enter you and reside in you. And that's why Yahushua said, if you receive a child in my name, you receive me. And whoever receives me receives him who sent me. Because Yahushua and his spirit, as the word of Yahweh, the seed in us, is the connection with the Father. So whoever receives Messiah receives the Father. And that's why also whoever does not receive the Messiah does not know the Father. And whoever receives me receives him who sent me. For he who is least among you, all will be great. In Luke 21, we also have that part that I said previously that had a big mistake in the translation. And he said, "Take heed that you not be deceived, for many will come against my name, saying, I am he. And the time has drawn near. Therefore, do not go after them." Do not go after them. So important. If somebody is not teaching the name, if somebody is against the name, one should not be listening to that person. That's one of the reasons also why, like I was saying, I stopped being invited to Christian churches to preach because I was basically preaching the true names. Just as I wasn't invited to some, I also must say there were some in which I just stopped going because they would not accept what I was preaching. So I felt pretty dumb preaching every day that I would go, everything that I would preach, and people would be talking and doing the same thing that they did before. So I was like, I guess you're not listening. I guess you don't care. I guess you don't want me here or something. So I stopped going. Because I realized that it's just a different doctrine. It's just a different spirit. That simple. Just like oil doesn't mix with water. It's that simple. So I am not trying to put anybody or make anybody think that I am going against Christians. I am going against Christianity. Christians are in the middle. They don't know what is happening unless they read scriptures and do a lot of, other things. So some stopped inviting me. Others I decided to stop going because they would not listen. They did not want to listen. And it was clear. So that was it. It happened the same when it came to me going to churches. I would go to Christian churches and sit and hope to learn something. Most of the time it was just the dancing and the jumping and the crying and the yelling and the shaking and the falling, etc. And then a preacher would say one or two things that were important, and that's what I would get from that day and go home, but still feel like didn't have enough. And that was most of the time, if not all the time, that I would go to those congregations. When I got the name, I started to read for myself and study for myself. I still would go to Christian churches, but I would get a lot more studying by myself than going to those congregations. Even though I know the scripture says that we should not stop congregating. But like I said, oil and water don't mix. So I would go to those churches, and the teaching was different. The feeling was different. The people, some, their love seemed hypocritical. It seemed like something that they had to do because it was part of the club in which they are, or the one they belong to, Christianity. So there was a point in which I said I should not be here because they are teaching something else. And I think this is not what Yahweh meant when he said that we should not stop congregating. I'm pretty sure he meant that we should not stop congregating with those who believe the same as we do. So I had to stop going to Christian churches. And I was alone for years, learning and growing, maybe teaching one person here, one person there. Then the Almighty made it so that a radio would call me and offer me a show on radio. And when I started that show in 2013, there were a lot of people who were in, well, not thousands, but to me it was a lot because I was teaching one, two. So then all of a sudden, a few people wanted to come together and start reading the scriptures with me. And that's how the congregation became a reality. The Father gave me a congregation. I did not go looking for it. I did not got desperate over not having one yet, and meaning not having one to assist, one to be part of. And the Father gave me the blessing to actually lead one. So it is a huge blessing and of course a responsibility that I do not take lightly. So I hope that is clear. So in Luke says, for many will come against my name, saying, I am he, and the time has drawn near. Therefore, do not go after them. Messiah is saying, somebody doesn't preach my name, they're not going to have the right doctrine. Don't go after them. You may want to listen to test the spirits, but that doesn't mean that you have to follow. In the book of Revelation 7 and 14, we see the chosen few who are the ones that have the name of the Father and the Son in their minds. Who have the zeal of the Father, which is the name of the Father and the Son, in their foreheads, their minds, their brains. And we see that those chosen few are the ones who follow the Messiah wherever he goes. So we are not to follow anybody on this earth. We are to follow the Messiah, his doctrine, wherever that may take us. Whatever that may take us. Even if it is to being lonely, to being alone in a room, learning, eventually he will put people around us. We need to understand that we are few. We cannot expect to have many people around us. We cannot expect to have many churches around our town that teach the truth, because we are few. And very few, being so many people in the world. So I hope that's clear. The Father has control over everything. He's the one that leads us to the teaching as long as we stay faithful. So, the story that I have told. Yahushúa came. He said that he came in the name of the Son. People did not believe him. They killed him. One of the reasons also that we see in the Talmud or the Toldot Yeshu, which is a book that the Jewish people wrote going against the Messiah, the real Messiah. Of course, they believe in the Messiah, not the real one. They still waiting for him, basically. And the Jewish people wrote a book, the Toldot Yeshu, in which they claim it is the story of Yahushua. They call him Yeshu, which is a curse. That's where Yeshua came afterwards. Yeshua, it is a Hebrew word, but they use Yeshu and they added an A so that it would be hidden, the fact that they call him a curse, Yeshu. So in that book they call him Yeshu, and they say that Yahushua the Messiah entered the most set apart place in the temple one day, which obviously it was impossible. I cannot imagine how much security they had, priestly wise, in order for nobody to ever be able to enter the most set apart place, or the Holy of Holies as they call it. So in that book they say that Yahushua, whom they call Yeshu, entered the most set apart place and was able to get the name of the Father. They say that Messiah entered and got the name, the pronunciation of the name of the Father. And they say in that book that it was through that name that he would make all the miracles that he did. They say that he got the name and then he went and did all the miracles because he wrote it on his leg, basically on his thigh. On his thigh, he wrote the name of the Father, which is interesting because we read in the book of Revelation that he has Sovereign of Sovereign and King of Kings written on his thigh. But anyways, in that book, the Toldot Yeshu, which is one of the theories or the opinions of the Jewish people, because some other Jewish people claim that Yahushua was a warlock, basically, that he would do witchcraft and stuff like that. So they have their different opinions, just like they have different opinions for pretty much everything. There's a joke that they say, which is that where there are two Jews, there are three opinions. And I have found that through my study to be very correct. So when they got the name Yeshu, like I said, from that Toldot Yeshu, and they say Yahweh, Yahushua entered the most set apart place, got the name on his thigh, and then he went to do all the miracles. But one day he lost the name and he forgot the pronunciation, which is, I think, pretty dumb if you ask me. One day the name of the Father was erased from his thigh and he forgot the name, the pronunciation. So he fell to the hands of the Pharisees and they killed him. So they say in that book of the Jewish people who do not receive the Messiah that Yahushua made all the miracles because he had the correct pronunciation of the name of the Father. And they know that it is so powerful that they claim that that is how he made the miracles. But then he lost the pronunciation and he was killed because of that. And that's why he wasn't able to get off the tree where he was being sacrificed. So that is where the name Yeshu appeared. They say all of that, of course, lies, fallacies, blasphemies. And that's how the name Yeshu came about. I repeat, something I said last week, but I will repeat it right now. Yahushua came with the name, with this pronunciation, Yahushua. Yahushua. Then the Jews who do not believe in him, they were angry that the name of the Father, Yahu, was in the name of the Son, Yahushua. So after killing the Messiah, they prohibited, and I will read some verses about that, the apostles, the disciples, to preach that name specifically. Not only what he said, not only what he did, but not to preach the name, not to use the name. They were against it. And they would kill the priests, the right priests, the apostles and the disciples for using and teaching the name. So that's why in the concordance, which is based or was done after the Masoretes, in the concordance, we do not find the word Yahushua with this pronunciation. I mean, if we search, we will find the Yahu, and then we will be able to make connections. But when it comes to the name of the Son, since they take it from the Greek, is the word G2424 in the concordance. And when you go to the word Jesus, you will see that it says from the Hebrew, Yehoshua. So in the concordance, it's already changed from Yahushua to Yehoshua. They added an E and an O. Yeho. The E and the O of Elohim. Elohim. So since the Masoretes added the vowel points of Elohim to Yahweh, depending on where it appeared, or the vowel points of Adonai to Yahweh, or the vowel points of Shema, then they chose the E and the O of Elohim because they would not pronounce Yah, which is how David called the Almighty. The first two letters of the name of the Father, Yah. So that's why they changed that to Yeh. Yeh. And then they changed the U of Yahuwah for an O of Elohim. So that's how they came up with Yehoshua. Yehoshua. And that's how you can find it in the concordance. Like I said, if you go to the concordance, you find Yehoshua. You can find other words to connect it with Yahoo. But my point is, once you see it in the concordance as Yehoshua, which is clearly completely different than Jesus, but they themselves tell you that is not the name was Yahushua, then you only have one step to go in order to get to the right pronunciation. Go from Yehoshua to Yahushua. Yahushua say, I come in the name of the Father. That's the first thing that they took out of the name of the Son, the name of the Father. He came in the name of the Son. He came in the name of the Father, Yahushua. So they took the name of the Father from the name of the Son and turned it into Yehoshua. And then they were fine with it. Go and teach of Yahushua because he didn't exist even. So the Jewish people, they made that change, Yehoshua. Then they turned it into a curse, Yeshu, which means Yamak Shemo Vetzikro. May his name and memory be destroyed. That's what the curse means. Yeshu means may his name and memory be destroyed. And it is basically the most common Jewish curse. And they made it the name of the Messiah, whom they don't believe in, of course. So they turned him into Yeshu. After Yehoshua, Yeshu. Big change, of course. After Yeshu came the Greeks, and they did not have the sound of the shin, the sh, plus the n of names or words that were masculine would be us, plus the Greeks worship Zeus, so they would add an sus to the end of names like Pegasus, Dionysus, and other names to give honor to Zeus. So they, since Messiah is male, since they were Greeks, since they worship Zeus, and they did not have the sound of the shin, they turned the Yeshu into Jesus. So that's how the Yeshu of the curse of the Jewish people became Jesus in the Greek. After Jesus, eventually in the 17th century, the letter J came to be. And the I in the front of the perversion, Jesus, became a J. And that's the moment when the word Jesus came to be. So the name Jesus did not exist until the 17th century. So there is no way that that was the name of the Messiah. No way that that was the name of the Messiah. First of all. Second of all, not only is in the 17th century, but it gives honor to Zeus, which according to Revelation, the book of Revelation, is Satan. Not only gives honor to Satan as Zeus, but it comes from Yeshu, which is a Jewish curse. So all that is around it is wrong. We should not call him Yeshu, Yeshua, Jesus, Jesus. We should not call none of those perversions. We should call him the name of the Father, Yahu, and the salvation that the Father has given us through him, Shua, Yahushua. I hope that's clear. So that's what the name of the Son went through after he went up. So just like the Pharisees and fake priests, those who actually worship Satan but claim to worship the Almighty, good Father, just like before the Messiah, they hid the name of the Father, afterwards they hid the name of the Son. And it should be clear, the Son is the image of the Father. So it should be obvious that that which happened with the Father would happen with the Son. Just like the Word rejected the Father, they manifested it by rejecting the Son. Just like they don't care about the name of the Father, they don't care about the name of the Son. The saying, Matthew 24, also confirms, said, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come against my name, saying, I am the Messiah." They will come against the name, saying that he is the Messiah. or many would come using their own name, saying that they are the Messiah, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. As we know, it wasn't Miriam or Joseph who thought of the name of the Messiah. It was Yahweh. And as I have explained before, and actually in a video that I am uploading right now, or I had to stop it, but I'm gonna upload it after this study. There were 7 things that Yahweh thought of before the creation of the universe, and the 7th of those was the name of the Messiah. So even before creation, Messiah had a name. And when he appeared on earth, that name was given to Miriam. And that's why Matthew 1:21 says, and she will bring forth a son. That was Gabriel speaking, or Gabriel. And you shall call his name Yahushua. And you shall call his name Yahushua. For he will save his people from their sins. One could think, for he, the Messiah, will save his people from their sins. Yeah, but it's as if the angel Gabriel was saying, for he, Yahweh, will save Shua, his people, from their sins. So, give him the name Yahushua, for Yahu will Shua, his people. That's why his name is Yahushua. I hope that's clear. Then, we see in Matthew 1:25, and did not know her, talking about Joseph, did not know Miriam, until she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Yahushua. Confirmation, the name that was given from the moment in which he was born, Yahushua. But it is important, and I wanted to read this one because Catholics think that Mary, as they call her and worship her, ascended heaven without ever having had sex. So they think that she was a virgin forever and still a virgin, so they worship her as the Virgin Mary. However, we see in Matthew 1:25 that Joseph did not have sex with her until Yahushua was born. That means once Yahushua was born, they had sex. That's why they had children other than Yahushua, who were his brothers and sisters. So we see that the Catholic doctrine is actually worshiping a different entity. They are not talking about the earthly mother of the Messiah, whose name is Miriam. They're talking about the Queen of Heaven, whose name which they have given her is Mary. And the Queen of Heaven, you can read it in the book of Jeremiah. I hope you do, so that you go and see how Yahweh is against the worship of the Queen of Heaven. It says, Acts 2:38. Then Kepha said to them, repent and let every one of you be immersed or baptized in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach for the remission of sins, and you shall receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. So we must be immersed in the name. Just like through Yahuhanan, John the Baptist, people and Yahushua himself were immersed in the water. Now through Yahushua the Messiah, we are immersed in his name. And by being immersed in his name, we are receiving his spirit. We are being immersed in his spirit because we get his spirit through his name, as the book of John tells us. In John 14:26, we see that it says, I'm going to read from the 25th. These things I have spoken to you while being present with you. But the Helper, the Ruach HaKodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things. So we should not expect a person, a pastor from any specific Christian doctrine to teach us all things, because we first need to have the faith in the name so that we may receive the Spirit that will teach us all things. And then when we have that Spirit, we can study by ourselves, we can congregate and wait or test what we are being taught, what we are hearing, and then either discard it or take it. And when I say discard it, I mean the whole doctrine and then leave that place, or accept it as in becoming part of a congregation. So But the helper, the Ruach HaKodesh, the spirit, the set apart spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he, and like I have said in the Hebrew, the Ruach is female, will teach you all things, and bring to your remembrance all things that I said to you. So first of all, the Spirit comes to us in His name. Not only, as we already saw tonight, not only because of the fact that He is the one that sends the Spirit. Actually, this verse confirms the whole thing that we've been talking about. Messiah is saying that the Father will send the Spirit, but that the Spirit comes through His name. So, to those who say that when Messiah said, I come in the name of my Father and you do not receive me, that he meant that he was sent by the Father, that is wrong, because Messiah is saying that he's the one whose name we need to confess. But it is Yahweh who sends the Spirit. So the Spirit comes from the Father through the name of the Son, because we need to call or confess the name of the Son in order to receive from the Father the Spirit. So when it also said, and many will come against my name, and as they read it, many will come in my name, that doesn't mean that they would come using his real name, because they don't even know it. That means that they would come against his real name, as we just saw because of the word epi. So, but the helper, the Ruach HaKodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all things that I said to you. Yahushúa, died so that we could be immersed in his spirit by confessing his name, and therefore confessing the name of the Father as our Savior. Once we do that, the Father sees that we believe and sends the Spirit, so that the Spirit may teach us everything that we need to know, so that we go from belief to action. For instance, when Peter healed a person that was, he was sitting right on the side where Peter was going. The man asked for money, and Peter said, silver and gold I do not have. That is something that most Christian pastors could not say right now. Silver and gold I do not have, but what I do have I give to you. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he walked and danced and a bunch of other things that he could not do before. But we see silver and gold I do not have. He has the name, and that is power. In Acts 4:10, when the Pharisees were angry that this person who didn't walk was walking now, they need an answer. How is he walking? How can you heal him if the Pharisees could not? If he would go to the temple and nothing would happen. Acts 4:10 says, let it be known to you all and to all the people of Israel that by the name of Yahushua HaMashiach of Nazareth, it doesn't say only that through him, or that by his power, or that because he believed. No, it's saying through the name. That's where it starts. Yes, of course, it is his power, but his power is given through the name. It's like a key, the key of knowledge, as I have said. So let it be known to you all and to all people of Israel that by the name of Yahushua HaMashiach of Nazareth, whom you sacrifice, whom Elohim raised from the dead, by him this man stands here before you whole. In Acts 4:13, which is 3 verses after, look at what the Pharisees, the priests of that time, as the ones nowadays, answer those disciples, apostles, who had just healed a person. And this is amazing. That's why I want to make it so clear. The apostles had healed a person. The Pharisees, who are supposed to be the ones who lead the people to the Father, instead of saying, oh, really? Teach me about this. Or, oh, that is the guy that we sacrificed. Let me believe in him. Teach me about him. None of that. They say, now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, of Kepha and Yahuhanan, and perceived that they were uneducated and untrained men, this is so important. Peter and Yahuhanan as the two witnesses. Peter representing the rock, the cornerstone. That's why the name Kepha. Yahuhanan representing Yahuhanan the Immerser, John the Baptist. That's why John. They were uneducated and untrained men. As when we appear before a pastor or whoever, and they disregard everything that we tell them just because we do not have a paper that says the name of a university and theology under it. Just because we don't have a title, or we may not have a specific training that they may have had, they discard everything that we say. However, that is how society works, acts, judges, through appearances, through what they themselves had established as being important. So if you don't have that society says it is important, then you are not important, and therefore it's not important that I listen to you. However, we just saw in John 14:26 that the Spirit is the one that teaches us all things. So why should we go to a man for him to teach us if the Spirit can teach us directly? So Kepha and Yahuhanan understood, had the Spirit, were healing people. Yet the priest would go against them because they knew that both of them were untrained, uneducated, according to their belief, according to their rule. So it says, now when they saw the boldness of Peter and Yahuhanan and perceived that they were uneducated and untrained men, they marveled. And they realized that they had been with Yahushúa. A little bit further down the line, verse 18 says, so they called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Yahushúa. Not to speak at all, the testimony of Messiah, nor teach in the name, the word of Yahweh. They were given testimony and preaching the word. The Pharisees said, do not say anything, nor speak in the name of Yahushúa of Nazareth. So important. So they called it and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Yahushúa HaMashiach. Let me see. Acts 5:40, the same happens. And they agreed with him. And when they had called for the apostles and beaten them, after they had heard them, for no reason, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Yahushúa, and let them go. So after having them for a while, they brought them, they beat them, and they told them, go and don't say the name, don't speak about that name. Acts 8:12, but when they believed Philip, as he preached the things concerning the kingdom of Yahweh and the name of Yahushúa HaMashiach, both men and women were immersed, baptized. Look, so important is the name that it doesn't say the kingdom of Yahweh and his son Yahushúa. No, it says, as he preached the things concerning the kingdom of Yahweh and the name of Yahushúa HaMashiach. So there is something that needs to be preached concerning the name. Yet people do not think the name is important. So what could you preach about the name? Makes no sense. Make a whole story about study about the name if the name is not important or there is nothing to be talked about the name. But Acts 9:27, but Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles, Bernabe, And he declared to them how he had seen Yahushúa, the sovereign, on the road, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Yahushúa. Acts 9:29, and he spoke boldly in the name of the sovereign Yahushúa, and disputed against the Hellenists, but they attempted to kill him. This is so interesting, and I wish I could just read all these chapters, the whole context. Look at this. And he spoke boldly in the name of the sovereign Yahushúa, and disputed against the Hellenists. Who are the Hellenists? They are those who follow the doctrines of the Greeks. The Greek doctrine, which basically entered Christianity and turned it into what it is right now, the apostasy, Christianity, those words are Greek. The Hellenists were those who follow the doctrines of the Greeks. So they would think that they had the true doctrine. And here we see that they are fighting, and they wanted to kill he who was talking about the name of Messiah. He who was preaching about the name of the Messiah, according to the Hellenists, the Greeks, as nowadays those who follow the Greek doctrines basically are the Christians, because they celebrate Christmas, they go to church on Sunday, they use all Greek words, they celebrate Easter and another bunch of celebrations that are Greek, completely pagan. They, when we come with the name, they feel anger and they want to kill us. Some do not dare to move a finger, but they feel it, they think it, they hate us. And remember that when you hate somebody, it's as if you are a murderer. So, and he spoke boldly in the name of the sovereign Yahushúa, and disputed against the Hellenists, but they attempted to kill him. Acts 13:6. Acts 13:6. This is another verse that I'm just going to read it and just say a couple words fast, but I wish, and eventually we have the time here to read those chapters. If any of you is interested in reading one of those chapters that I am mentioning, let me know eventually so that we can read the whole context, because this one, for instance, is very important. Acts 13:6. Now when they had gone through the island of Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet. This is a representation of nowadays false prophets. In the days of the apostles, there were already false prophets. Sorcerer. So he would do magic, and people would think that it was miracles. Like nowadays, there are many magicians. I already explained that, and part of it I put it in the video that I'm about to upload. So, now when they had gone through the island of Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Jew, whose name was Bar Yeshu. They put it, and if you go and read your scripture, it says Bar Jesus, meaning the son of Jesus, the son of Jesus. But originally was son of Yeshu. Some others write it son of Yeshua. That's why they translated it as Jesus, or they put it in these translations as Jesus. But this is so funny and interesting, and if you see the whole context, you would see that he is called the son of Satan. So how come his name is son of Jesus and the apostles call him the son of Satan? I think the scripture is telling us something very important about the name Jesus, or Yeshua as many people call him. Because this man was called Bar Jesus, and the apostles call him Bar Satan, son of Satan. And since I think this is a very important, Acts 13 verse 4 says, so being sent out by the Ruach HaKodesh, they went down to Seleucia, and from there they sailed to Cyprus. And when they arrived in Salamis, they preached the word of Yahweh in the synagogue of the Yahudim. They also had Yahuhanan as their assistant. Now when they had gone through the island of Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Jew, whose name was Bar Jesus, or Bar Yeshua, who was with the proconsul Sergius Paulus, an intelligent man. This man called for Barnabas, or Barnaby, which is interesting, Father, it's so important. Barnaby means son of the prophet. And now Barnaby, son of the prophet, is coming against Yeshua, Bar Jesus. Bar Jesus. So Barnaby is coming against Bar Jesus. Son of the prophet is coming against the son of Jesus. Son of the prophet represents the prophet like Moshe. The second coming, the witness like Moshe. So that's why Barnaby as the second coming is coming against the false Messiah, Bar Jesus. So he says, this man called Barnaby and Shaul. Well, actually, yeah, I had explained this in other things in the book that I wrote about the book of Revelation. When Barnaby and Paul appear together, as in this case, Shaul, Paul, or Paulus, and Barnaby, they represent the two witnesses. In this case, as I have always said, and that is, I hope is clear, Paulus, Shaul, represents the second coming. Shaul, which means desire, the desire one. Paulus, which means small, little. So he comes as a little by the appearances, but he's actually the desire one, Messiah. Then Barnaby is called that because he is the spiritual son of Paulus. As in, Barnaby received the Messiah through Paulus. So Barnaby is the son of the prophet represented by Paulus. So I want to make that clear. Basically, in that case, Barnaby represents the witness like Eliyahu. Paulus represents the witness like Moshe. So it says, this man called Barnaby and Shaul and sought to hear the word of Yahweh. But Elimas, the sorcerer, for so his name is translated, language, Elimas means a wise man. So he was a wise man, but he was wise when it came to sorcery, witchcraft. So it said right here, then, but Elimas, the sorcerer, withstood them, seeking to turn the proconsul away from the faith. So Bar Jesus, the son of Jesus, was hoping to turn the leader against the faith that was being taught by Paul and Barnaby, the two witnesses. So the two witnesses appear trying to preach the true doctrine, but then the son of Jesus appears, Bar Jesus, to go against them. And he's a sorcerer, by the way. So, seeking to turn the proconsul away from them, from the faith. Then Shaul, who also is called Paulus, listen, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, meaning he wasn't just angry, it didn't come from him, he didn't thought of it, he didn't say it from his own will. It was the Ruach HaKodesh which through him told us something huge. Who also is called Paulus, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, looked intently at him and said, O full of all deceit and all fraud. O full of all deceit and all fraud, meaning Bar Jesus represents the lie, the son of perdition itself, since it says full of all deceit and all fraud. You son of the devil, you enemy of all righteousness, will you not cease perverting the straight way of Yahweh? This is amazing. The way of Yahweh is the Son, Yahushúa HaMashiach, who said, I am the way, the life, the truth. So Paulus, or Paul, through the Ruach HaKodesh, is looking at the sorcerer named Son of Jesus, and he's telling him, "Oh, you full of deceit, full of fraud, son of the devil, you enemy of all righteousness." So he is the manifestation of unrighteousness, the manifestation of the lie. "Oh, full of deceit and all fraud, you son of the devil, you enemy of all righteousness, will you not cease perverting the straight way of Yahweh?" Will you not cease perverting? Perverting, making different versions, perverting the way of Yahweh. The way of Yahweh is Yahushúa. When he made perversions of the name, perverted versions of the name, he was making different ways for people to go. And that is what became the apostasy. The apostasy is to go away from the truth. Paulus is telling this man, why are you turning everybody away from the true way, which is Yahushúa, by giving them perversions, perverted ways? "You enemy of all righteousness, will you not cease perverting the straight way of Yahweh? And now, indeed, the hand of Yahweh is upon you, and you shall be blind, not seeing the sun for a time." Not seeing the sun for it. So since he was spiritually blinded, he was blinded by the Ruach HaKodesh. Just like when Paul himself was blinded by the Pharisees, by that doctrine, when Yahushua appeared to him, he was blinded for a while. Now Paul is blinding this man because of his sin, showing that the false Messiah is spiritually blind. He doesn't understand the truth. And that is why, since people worship that false Messiah, have the spirit of error, and therefore do not understand the true doctrine, as the scripture tells us, because the mighty one of this age has blinded the minds of the unbelievers, that they might not believe in the good news of Messiah, who is the image of Yahweh. So, "And now indeed the hand of Yahweh is upon you, and you shall be blind, not seeing the sun for a time." And immediately a dark mist fell on him, and he went around seeking someone to lead him by the hand. Then the proconsul believed when he saw what had been done, being astonished at the teaching of Yahweh. So like I said, I think that is a very important part of scripture. Shows us something very deep. I'm going to read a few more verses. Acts 15:26. "Men who have risked their lives for the name of our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach." They did not risk their lives for what they were preaching. They meaning just whatever words or doctrine. They risked their lives because of the name. Men who have risked their lives for the name of our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach. Acts 16:18 says, "And this she did for many days." This is a part where Paulus was walking around a certain town, and there was a witch who had a spirit. She was possessed by a spirit, and the spirit would tell her fortune for the people that paid her. And the spirit realized that Paulus was the preacher of the truth. So the spirit in her was revealing it out loud all over the place where he went. So he got tired of it. He could not stand it. And it says, Acts 16:8, "And this she did for many days. But Paulus, greatly annoyed, turned and said to the spirit, I command you in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach to come out of her. And he came out that very hour." Then he got in trouble, Paulus, because the people that were making money through her did not make money anymore. Because the spirit that possessed her was the one that was given her the ability to foretell certain parts of the future. Acts 19:5. "When they heard this, they were immersed in the name of the sovereign Yahushua." Not immersed in water, but in the name. Acts 19:13. "Then some of the itinerant Jewish exorcists took it upon themselves to call the name of Yahweh." I'm sorry, I'm going to read in context. This is another story that is very, very important. So let me see. then some of the itinerant Jewish exorcists, they were exorcists. They were not preachers of the truth. They were Jewish people who did not believe in Yahushua as Messiah, but they made money exorcising people, meaning that they would use rituals like those written by Shlomo or Solomon. They would use rituals to take demons out of people, and then they would charge them for releasing them or of demons. They saw that the apostles were taking demons out everywhere through the name of the Messiah Yahushua. So even though they did not believe in Yahushua as Messiah, they knew that the name had power, so they started using it to take out demons from people and make money. But they did not believe and they did not preach the name. And this is important because it is written that when we preach the name before men, Yahushua himself preaches our name before Yahweh and his angels. So when we talk of the Messiah is talking about us. So if we may make known the Messiah among the people, the Messiah will make us known among the spirit world, spirits, demons, and everything. But if we do not preach the Messiah, nobody in the spirit world would know us. This is important. That's why Yahushua also said, if you are ashamed of my name, I will be ashamed of you. Basically, he said, if you preach my name, if you confess my name before men, I will confess your name before my Father and his angels. But he who is ashamed of me, I will be ashamed of him before my Father and his angels. So here we see a manifestation of that teaching. It says, then some itinerant Jewish exorcists, that was their business, took it upon themselves to call the name of the sovereign Yahushua, of the Adon Yahushua, over those who had evil spirits, saying, we exorcise you by the Yahushua whom Paulus preaches. Just by saying this, they are giving testimony that they do not believe in Messiah. They do not preach Messiah. They just have heard it from another man called Paulus, who does preach Messiah. And Paulus represents the second coming. So it's as if they were saying, we exorcise you by the power of the first and the last. We exorcise you by the name of the first and the last. But they do not preach of the first and the last. They do not understand. They're just trying to use the name to make money. So they say, we exorcise you, showing that they were using it as a ritual. The word exercise is key. Adjure, solemnly command. We exorcise you by the Yahushua whom Paulus preached. Meaning not any other Yahushua that you may think of. Not the Yahushua, successor of Moshe. Not the Yahushua who was high priest during the time of Zorobabel and Zechariah, the book, Zechariah. We exorcise you by the Yahushua whom Paulus preaches. Meaning Yahushua of Nazareth, Yahushua HaMashiach. They did not call him Mashiach. They said Paul called him Mashiach. Also, there were 7 sons of Seva, a Jewish chief priest who did so. 7 sons. And we could go to the name Seva and other things that we could get through it, but I'm not going to do it right now. The 7 represents completion. That's why there were 7 congregations in the book of Revelation to which Yahweh sent a letter. So how interesting that there are 7 sons who are using the name but are not preaching the true doctrine. Also, there were 7 sons of Seva, a Jewish chief priest who did so. And the evil spirit, this is so important, the evil spirit answered and said, Yahushua I know, the first, the Mashiach, who died and resurrected. The demon knew him. He says, Yahushua I know, and Paulus I know. Because Paulus was preaching of Messiah on earth, so Yahushua was preaching of Paulus on heaven. Confessing his name before the spirits. So that's why the demon knew Paulus. So that's why the demon says, Yahushua I know, Paulus I know. Meaning the first and the last I know. They have power, authority. And those who preach them also do. Yahushua I know, and Paulus I know. But who are you? The demon did not know who those people were, who thought they had authority to take him out, who thought they had authority to exorcise this person. So the evil spirit answered and said, Yahushua I know, and Paulus I know, but who are you? Then the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them, overpowered them, and prevailed against them, so that they fled out of that house naked and wounded. It is the interpretation of this verse, and of many people, myself included, that the possessed man, the man that had the evil spirit, what he's saying here is that that man raped them. That's why they left naked and wounded, because he overpowered them. So since they were trying to use something that is so set apart and pure to just make money, but they did not believe in it, neither preach of it, it was allowed for this demon to do this to them through this body that it was possessing. So it says, then the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them, overpowered them, and prevailed against them, so that they fled out of that house naked and wounded. These became known both to all Yahudim and Greeks dwelling in Ephesus. And fear fell on them all, and the name of the sovereign Yahushua was magnified. And the name of the sovereign Yahushua was magnified. In Acts 21:13, then Paulus answered, what do you mean by weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the sovereign Yahushua. Paulus was willing to die for the name, not only the teaching, not only the testimony, mainly the name. The two witnesses will die because of the name. Like Paul is saying here, prophesying that the witness like Moshe, which was represented by him, Paulus, would die because of the name. Acts 26:9, and with this we finish tonight. Indeed, I myself thought I must do many things contrary to the name of Yahushua of Nazareth. So Paulus himself thought that he had to do things against the name. He thought that he had to preach, hey, the name is not important. He thought he had to preach, kill those who preach his name. He thought he had to get rid of the name so that the testimony of Messiah would never be preached. Because if you teach another name and then you teach a testimony, people will think that that testimony is connected to that name that you just mentioned. However, that is the reason why you need to have the name, in order so that the testimony is connected to the real person who lived it, who did it, who died and resurrected and saved us from our sins. So, indeed, I myself thought I must do many things contrary to the name of Yahushua of Nazareth. Many people nowadays take it to themselves to go against the name, and that they make it their teaching. But in Hebrews 13:15, it says, therefore, by him, Messiah, let us continually offer the sacrifice of praise to Yahweh. That is, the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. Actually, this is wrong translation. And that's one of the things that really bother me. And they even put a comment on that word. It really bothers me. They put a comment on the word, and you go down and it says the word is confessing. So why do you write thanking? Why do you write thanks if the word is confess? It's completely different. And those are the problems that we find with translations. That's why we got to be careful. That's why we got to read the comments if we have a study Bible. So I read it again with the correct word. Therefore, by him, Messiah, let us continually offer sacrifice of praise to Yahweh. What is the sacrifice of praise to Yahweh? Many people believe it is to sacrifice an animal. Other people believe it is to hurt yourself, like many Catholics used to do, or some do still. Other people believe it's jumping and dancing and falling. Yet, Paulus is telling us, therefore by him let us continually offer sacrifice of praise to Yahweh. That is, the fruit of our lips, meaning words that we confess. The fruit of our lips confessing his name. So when we confess the name of Yahushua, we are offering a sacrifice of praise to Yahweh, because Yahushúa, whom we are confessing, was the one who sacrificed himself, and whom we follow in order to know the real Father, and therefore that is the praise that Yahweh is looking for. Therefore, by him let us continually offer the sacrifice of praise to Yahweh, that is the fruit of our lips, confessing his name.